And when you come to the fourth step, the fourth ecstasy, your mind is completely focused on one thing. But at that point, a new thing comes up. When your focus is on one thing, now if I am focusing my attention on something like a camera or something, my attention is on that object. But when I go further than that, my attention is not on the object, but on the process of perception. That is, the attention is focused inwards. Inwards means not on the object, but on the process of perception, which means not what I see, but how I see. I am focusing not on what I see, but on how I see. That is very important to understand. To understand that, I sometimes use an analogy. Supposing we have a mirror here, a mirror, and in front of the mirror we put a bird. What do you think the bird will be doing? It will start pecking on the mirror, on the image. Why? Because the bird thinks there is another bird on the outside. But instead of putting the bird, you put your face there. What happens? You begin to see that it is your own face that you see. Why is that? Because you have understood not just what you see, but how you see. You are understanding not what you see, your focus is on how you see it. And so you have understood that it is not your face or someone else's face. It is your own face. So that's the important thing to understand. And then, not only that, another thing happens. When you begin to become aware of the process of perception, you begin to analyze the process of perception. How did this perception take place? And then you begin to see that there are 5 parts to it. And that is what normally is translated as the 5 aggregates. But I translate that as the 5 constituents of the process of perception. 5 constituents of the process of perception. In other words, how I see is simply when I open my eyes, what do I see? Normally, when there is no light here, you don't see anything. you are in the dark. But the moment the light comes, you see. That means the first thing that you see is the light. And the light really comes in the form of 7 colors: violet, indigo, blue, green, orange, red. What we call white is really a mixture of all these colors, and that is how you see white. But white is not the real color. They are all coming in these 7 ways. So in other words, what we really see is color. And when we see something, what we see is simply colors, and out of the colors we create an image. And it is that image that we see. So the image is what is called Rupa. Rupa means the image. And the image is made of colors. And color also is seen in another way, not in the terms of blue, yellow, red or something, but we see it as beautiful color or an ugly color or a neutral color, which is neither beautiful nor ugly. So 3 ways of seeing it, that is called Vedana. Vedana we translate as feeling, how you feel the color, whether you feel it as something pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. That's the feeling. And the color we call the sensation. So the sensation and the feeling of the sensation. That is what is called Vedana and Sanya. Sanya is the sensation, Vedana is the feeling. So these 2 things are like the 2 bricks that make the wall. Just as you make a wall out of bricks, you make use of the Vedana and the Sanya to create the Rupa, the picture. So the picture or the mental image is created by the color and the feeling. And that creation or construction is what is called Sankhara. Sankhara is the construction. So once you have constructed the image, there is another thing that you do. You see, this is a face that I see, and this is a camera that I see, or this is a rod that I see, or this is a chair, or this is a table. So, in other words, I identify the image. It's an identification which is giving a name to it. So the name is called Nama, and the mental image is called Rupa. So that process is called perception. That is Vijnana. Vijnana is that process of creating the image and identifying it. That process is called vijnana, which in the English language is perception. And perception is very important to understand. Once we have perceived something, we begin to identify what we have perceived, and that is the nama and the rupa. So vijnana pacchaya nama rupam means once perception has taken place, what you perceive is a mental image and the name, nama and the rupa. But another thing happens after that. It's not only seeing, you use your other senses also. Hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. This is why you give something to a small baby. What does the baby do? Begin to touch it and shake it and throw it and do so many things. Why? To get all the information from all the senses. That is why. And so, it's only by getting all the information from the different senses that we begin to see it as an object that exists. We begin to see it as a chair that has a shape and not only color, but even when you touch, this is how it will feel, and everything is there when we see it as an object that is existing out there. So that is what is called salayatana. Salayatana means you are making use of all the senses. And pacha passo. Passa is usually translated as contact. Passa is not contact. Passa is, that is what is called cognition. To cognize something is to understand what it is. If it is, you say this is a chair, that means that is a complete cognition. It's not just contact. And when you cognize something, what are you doing? That is called existential thinking. You are thinking of the existence of something. And this is not only just existential, it is an objective existence. The existence of an object. And once you have seen that, then comes another thing. That means you begin to feel whether it is pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. That feeling begins to start working at that point. And once you begin to feel that it is pleasant, what do? You are attracted to it. You desire what is pleasant and hate what is unpleasant. And if it is neutral, you just let it be. You are not desiring or hating. So that is what is called tanha. Today translated as craving. Tanha is not craving. Tanha is reacting to what is perceived and conceived. So the reaction comes in three ways: attraction to what is pleasant, repulsion to what is unpleasant, and just letting something be. If it is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, you let it be there. You are not reacting to it. But you are aware that it is there. So those are the three things: kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha. Kama tanha is the attraction, vibhava tanha is the repulsion, and bhava tanha is to let it be. You accept it as something that is there. That's all. But there is another thing that happens at that point. Because you have reacted to it. So now you are not only seeing something there, you are also aware of a reaction. Where is the reaction? The reaction is something subjective. What you saw was something objective. So your experience is now divided into two: the object and the subject. And what is subjective? You say, the desire is mine, the hatred is mine, that awareness is mine. You personalize the subjective. When the subjective is personalized, what happens? How can you say this is mine if there is no I here? So the moment you personalize something, you have created the I. I am. This is why Descartes thought, I think, therefore I am. Because he personalized the thinking. The moment he personalized the thinking, he created the self. That's how it happens. But another thing happens. It doesn't end there. Because the moment you have created the I, a question arises. Where is the I? What are you calling the I? You have to provide something that exists. You have to point to something that exists. And what do you point to as the I? The body. It is the body that you point to and say, this is the I. You say, who are you? Then you can say, here, this is me. Yeah, the body. You are pointing to the body. And say, this is the I. The moment you point to the body as yourself, what happens? The body is something that occupies space and time. Because it occupies space, you have a length, breadth and height. But something more, you also have a past, present and future. That is time. And what is your past? The past of the body becomes your past. And that means the past is your birth. Birth of the body becomes your birth. Then the future is the death of the body. And in between is aging. So you see, you have three things: birth, aging and death. The moment you begin to have a thing like that, comes all the grief, lamentation, pain, sorrow and despair. All the suffering comes from that. The moment you get hold of the body as myself, that is what is called Sakkaya Ditthi. Sakkaya Ditthi means the concept of the self as the body. Body becomes the self. When the body becomes the self, you have created suffering for yourself. It is the suffering that you have got hold of as myself. This is why the Buddha said, Sankittena Pañcupādānakkhandhā dukkha. In short, what is called dukkha or suffering is this collection of things, the five constituents of the process of perception. Actually, how do you know that there is a thing called body? Have you seen your body? You have only seen your hands or your abdomen or your legs or something like that. If you want to see yourself properly, you might have to go to see before a mirror. Then only you will see. But even then, you are not seeing it fully. Only other people can see you. This is only a collection of images that you get hold of and say, this is myself. So what you call yourself is simply a collection of images. It is the process of perception itself that you are calling yourself. It's not a real self that you are talking about. If someone takes a picture of you with a camera and show you the picture, oh, this can't be myself, doesn't look like me. Because you have an image of your own in your mind, which is not your real self that other people see. So you see, so ultimately there is no real self here, you have only created the self. You have not only created the self, you have also created the world outside. All this is simply what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Now people, if you go through the history of Western philosophy, you will find that all these philosophers have started talking about these things. But it was the Buddha who really brought this up properly and pointed out. This Paticca Samuppada is an explanation of how we begin to create a world outside and ourself inside the world. But in actual fact, there is no real world outside or any real self inside. This is the point. It's only when we have properly understood this, not by just learning it as a philosophy or something, but we have to observe it. That is what we call meditation or insight meditation. Not only ordinary meditation, it is meditation insight. Insight means seeing what is inside. Insight.